how to build an effective glute workout, specifically for beginner women, but if you're intermediate and advanced, we might get some tips. So good morning, good afternoon, and hello with this lovely bed head hair that I have going on this morning. We're gonna get into it, but before we get into the movements and kind of specifics, what I would recommend for programming and what I use for coaching. Firstly, it's important that we spend some time understanding the anatomy of the glute itself, the muscle. So the glute medius and the glute maximus. You want to work through the full ranges that you can through the lengthened position and the shortened position because the fibers are interlined, as you can see displayed in this image here. So the fibers kind of cross over, right? And the glute medius is the thing that makes your butt pop. It's the thing that makes your butt look like it's got a shelf, right? Donk, if you will. So that's a separate kind of part muscle of the glute maximus itself. But you want to train it all through all the ranges of motion, and I'm going to kind of cover the categories and how it runs through those exercises and give you some examples of exercises and how you can kind of plan it ahead. And also maybe you might be wondering, why do I do this exercise, or why have I been doing this exercise, and kind of not knowing. So this might make some sense, hopefully. So in no particular order, we're going to start off with the hip thrust itself. So the hip thrust with a barbell, a dumbbell, a booty builder, essentially will train your glute max in a shortened position. So the glute max itself. So when you're squeezing your butt at the top, that's when the glute max will get the most work, because when you do the hip thrust there, it's heavy at the bottom, but the most contraction, the most force, and the most pain, the pump, right, you feel is at the top. So the shortened position. So that's what we do hip thrusts. You kind of get because you want to hit the muscle fiber in the lengthened and shortened position. Think of it like the short position will be the top, and the lengthened, the whole fiber, to make sure you have a well-developed glute, right? Next up is a squat. Again, a squat will work the whole glute max in more or less the lengthened and shortened position, depending what kind of squat you're doing, if you're dumbbells, if your feet elevated, if it's a sumo squat, if it's a goblet squat. But the point is your training program should include a hip thrust of some sorts and a squat pattern of some sorts. You could do a Smith machine. You could do a leg press. It's a knee flexion. It's like a squat. You could do that as well. It's more like what is comfortable and what can you get strong at. That's the most important thing. Next up is a Bulgarian lunge, any variation. So when you're doing a Bulgarian lunge and your front shin is vertical and you're sitting back with the hips, you are working in a stretched position, right? So you're getting a hip flexion, which is going to work really good for the developing glutes, because not only are you getting a short position on the hip thrust, but you're also getting the lengthened, the stretched position as much as you can on, say, a Bulgarian split squat. That's why we include them in training, from barbells, dumbbells to single leg step ups. Essentially, again, whatever is comfortable, you can load, you can stick with, and progress with. That's the most important factors to consider in terms of what exercise is better. So there's no better Bulgarian or better squat or hip thrust than the one you can sustain, maintain, and get strong at. Which brings me on to the next point, which kind of goes into this, from the stretched position to the lengthened, which is slightly different. A stretched and a lengthened position angles or movement pattern is slightly different. In a stretched position, you're essentially stretching the muscle out. So you're just going an isometric position. But on RDL and Romanian deadlift, you are loading the lengthened position. So there's not a lot of work on the Romanian deadlift at the top when you squeeze your butt. It's not a hip thrust necessarily, but it is, but it's not. But your glute max gets to work a lot in the bottom of the Romanian deadlift, which is the lengthened position. So it's not a stretch because there's load there. On the Bulgarian, there isn't as much load because the load is continuous there, because it's heavy at the top and heavy at the bottom. But on the Romanian deadlift, it's heavy in the glute at the bottom, not necessarily at the top. So I hope that makes sense. So again, Romanian deadlifts you can do with the dumbbell, barbell, cable, step up. It's what you can stay with consistently, progressively overload. That's the key. And the last thing, of course, is the abductions. So that's the shelf, that's the glute medius right here that we want to target. And that's like kickbacks, the abduction machine, any kind of lateral curtsy lunges. Those are great to include. So you see how like the hierarchy isn't necessarily abduction is priority. You can naturally prioritize, say, abduction exercise first over the hip thrust, for example. Think of it like, you want to train your chest, gym bro math, right? If you're a gym bro, and you want to train a bigger chest, upper chest, you'll do upper chest first because it has more recovered muscle first, because you haven't trained it yet. So you'll train your weakest part first to give it the most effort you can. So there's no problem with you also starting with the weaker area that you want to develop the most to do it first in training. And if you feel like your glute shelf or your glute medius isn't getting as much work done, or it's underdeveloped, you could come in fresh and load that first. Now, I've talked about a few videos in terms of movement patterns and training. I haven't done a sets, reps, and kind of ranges and programming. The last video was talking about programming, but I haven't talked about the reps and stuff yet, so I'll make a video on that shortly. But more or less, you can train through all the ranges 3 times a week. You could do an abduction, squat, Bulgarian lunge, RDL, hip thrust, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. It would get amazing results. You know, you want some upper body as well and all these other things, but like, you could have a good workout. You can also split it up. This could be day 1 priority. This could be day 3 priority, day 2 priority, or day 3, and then day 5 is all the movement patterns again. Just to give you an idea. Anyways, I hope you found some value. I hope you found this useful. I'll be back tomorrow with another video.